it's just one of those things where, when you're 18, 19 years old and because I was a pallbearer, like I carried him to his final resting place. Like when you do that at 18 or 19 years old, like that makes you grow up real fast, like real fast. So yeah, that was a challenging and weird time. And I found myself like I guess hiding the emotions from that because I didn't know really what to do with it. That's me this week on the Do It For Yourself podcast. Hey everybody, how's it going? As you may have gathered, this week we are doing something a little different. And this idea came from the man who I am co-hosting with today, Mr. Jimmy Dollinger. And I approached him to come on the show when I first launched the idea. And he said, well, I'll make you a deal. I will come on your show, which I haven't convinced him to do yet, if for the last episode of the year, for the 52nd episode, you allow me to sit down and unpack your story and interview you as someone who knows the story very, very well. And I said, all right, you got it. And so that's what we have done. And this is a little bit of a longer episode. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to split it in two, and I will release the first half on today, Tuesday, and the second half will be released on Thursday. So here we go with the first half. This is my full story. It is uncut. This is it. I hope you enjoy it, and I will share the second half on Thursday.
All right, let's rock.
Let's hit it, bro. I'm ready.
All right, so we're flipping the switch a little.
Yes, sir.
Ian Harding, Do It For Yourself podcast, normal host, taking a back seat.
A backseat.
Backseat. Getting interviewed.
Yes, sir.
55 people so far this year.
Yeah. I only missed 2 weeks.
Yeah. Set out on a goal, a year ago?
January 8th was the first one that got posted.
Saying
the first, I think, legitimate one.
Saying you wanted to do 52 weekly podcasts.
Yep.
And you hit 50 of them.
Yeah. The one I missed was when we were out in Cleveland for Nationals.
USA Tri-Nationals.
Yeah,
Nationals.
So I missed that one. And I think the next one that I missed was I missed this week. Monday was Christmas Eve.
Right.
And we were just saying how nuts out that was. So it was like Monday's Christmas Eve, Tuesday's Christmas, Wednesday's day after. Like there's still stuff going on. And I mean, I have the episodes in the bank, but I was like, you know what? I'll hold on to those two. One of which was with Talbot Cox, which is a super interesting interview. So that's going to be, that'll be fun to drop in 2019. And I figured we'll just start with this one. I mean, technically New Year's Eve is Monday, so I might wait and put this up either New Year's Day or the 2nd of January.
Yeah,
but we'll kick off 2019 with this. And then I have, 2 interviews and a bunch more scheduled. So
yeah, we're sitting here December 29th, getting ready to roll into 2019.
Yeah, man.
You had the initial idea of doing the podcast, and I said I thought it would be pretty cool to get your story out. Probably a little bit more raw and uncut.
Yeah.
Than your previous episodes. So we're gonna roll right into it. Tell the people a little bit about your story. Just kind of where you started from early age on to where you kind of are now.
Yeah. So I was always the kid who was like bigger. And I remember when I was in like elementary school through there, I always got shit from people just kids being kids, like kids are dicks. And I've said that before
Always.
on the podcast. And like, I've said it, like I go and speak at Westchester and stuff. And like, that's just the thing. Like kids, once you hit like 4th, 5th, 6th grade, like kids are dicks. And so I had to deal with that kind of all through elementary and, like I said, middle school. And what I found was, like, I was going through elementary school, and I went to Catholic elementary school. So they didn't take too kindly to people who were, like, kind of going against the system and, like, kind of, quote unquote, causing an issue. And I would be the one who got in trouble because I would be reacting to what people were saying. So, like, there'd be smart-ass kids saying shit, like, under their breath to me, and I'd react, and I'd be the one who got in trouble. So I had to go see, like, the school counselor, and this is a story that I always tell when I speak at Westchester, but the school counselor's talking to me, and she's trying to figure out what's going on, trying to figure out what the problem is, like, trying to figure out, like, why I'm, causing a problem or, like, reacting to these people. And, so we get into it. I start telling her, like, these kids are making fun of me for, my size, for this, for that. And so she's trying to figure out, like, what to do. And her piece of advice that she gives me is, like, so when you go to McDonald's, instead of ordering 2 cheeseburgers, why don't you just order 1?
Yeah, great idea.
And I'm like, I mean, at that point, I was just kind of like, no, like, I'm hungry. Like, if I want 2 cheeseburgers, I'm going to order 2. But
I'm going to eat.
Right. And then, so the thing that led to, which I didn't realize it at the time, but, looking back, hindsight's 20/20, is that it really made me start to hide my eating. So, like, if I would go to a party or I would go somewhere, like, I would just eat 1 of something, and then later, like, when nobody was looking, I would go and hide, the food that I was eating after the fact, because I never wanted to be, the fat kid who was going and getting seconds and stuff like that.
Right.
So I would just hide it. And that ended up being like a reoccurring theme kind of throughout my journey, because, it led into stuff like I was hiding a bunch of other shit when I started to get older. And I just thought that was like, okay, because
normal.
that's what I was doing,
right.
All the way through. So yeah, but when I got to high school, and it was probably like my sophomore year, maybe my junior year of high school, I had like a really, really good group of friends that I hung out with all the time. And, I still keep in contact with those guys to this day. And so, obviously, like, you and I are sitting across the table from one another. So having that core group of friends kind of just, that was it. I was like, I don't really care what, like, these people over here are saying. Like, I had a great group of friends. I was on the lacrosse team for my freshman and sophomore year in high school. So, like, that stuff kind of, I wouldn't say it went away. Of course, there was always still people who are kind of,
the dicks.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, I got a chance to just kind of sit back and not worry about what those people were saying, because I had a great group of friends that I was hanging out with.
Now, would you say, for the most part, that those friends held you accountable in a sense? Or was your, I guess, weight gain, weight loss conundrum that you were in just kind of like there, and then you didn't really care that much about it?
Well, so the funny thing is like, when I would go to the doctor, for whatever, a physical, a checkup, or whatever it was, I was sick, that's like the first thing they do. They bring you back and they're like, okay, right over here, they make you get on the scale.
Right.
And then the doctor would come in and I'd talk with the doctor, and, we'd figure out what was going on, or we'd go through the physical, whatever it is. And it was just like, it was always the same. I just still, just like the counselor, I still remember this. They're like, hey, have you ever been concerned about your weight? No, I haven't.
Just
clearly. Like,
right.
So it was like, they're saying this, and instead of like offering, solutions or saying like, hey, maybe you should be concerned about this, like, they never said that. So like, I was never concerned about it.
Right.
Like,
it was never something to worry about.
Yeah, not at all. And so, like, when I was in high school, like I said, I played lacrosse, so I was fairly active then. I think when it really started to balloon up was when I was in college, because I commuted. And
On the road nonstop.
yeah, I was on the road all the time.
Yep.
And so I would just grab whatever I could, whether it be Wawa, McDonald's, Taco Bell, like it just didn't matter, you know? And obviously the good stuff is the more expensive stuff. So I wasn't going out to Whole Foods and getting a fucking salad and all, like, not the shit that I'm doing now, because like that is expensive. Like it's expensive to eat healthy
clean,
on the
yeah,
road.
absolutely.
On the road. Like if you're at home, it's definitely easier, but it's expensive to do that shit on the road if you're not bringing it with you.
$10-$12 for a salad.
Oh, easy.
Right.
Yeah, easy. And
You
that's
think
the thing
about that
I
every day.
Well, that's the thing that I don't understand is like if you go to a restaurant, right? And you go to order a salad, this is the thing that frustrates me beyond belief. You go to a restaurant, you're like, all right, I'm going to order a salad. I'm going to try. You know, they'll charge you like $6 for the salad itself. But then to put chicken or shrimp or something like a healthy protein, they charge you like another fucking $7. You're like, wait a minute, you're putting like one chicken breast on there. Like it's not.
That's the scam.
Yeah, it is. So back then, dude, I was just eating. I still remember there were days where I would sit in the parking lot at Westchester University and my lunch was like 2 soft pretzels and a fucking half-gallon of iced tea. Like that was like lunch.
And it satisfied you though.
Oh yeah, it satisfied me. I mean, dude, it's the soft pretzels alone are like 350 calories a pop.
Yeah, it's
so
nuts.
there's that, right? And then you throw down a half a gallon of tea. That's
Another 400.
Oh, easy. Yeah, I mean, you figure that's like
You're swinging 1,000 calories in one meal.
right. Exactly. You know, so so my friends, I don't think that they didn't. It's not like they were enablers in the situation. Like it was definitely all me.
Right.
You know what I mean? But nobody brought it up either. Nobody was like, hey man, you know, this is like, it's getting a little out of control. Like it was just par for the course.
Right. But they
you know
weren't
what I mean?
seeing that calorie intake happening. They were just seeing the end result of that.
Yeah, but they didn't even. So they saw the end result, but I don't know that they did see it, quote unquote. You know what I mean?
Right, because
like,
you were you, and they see personality and friendship and everything behind that.
I don't think that anybody was like, and it wasn't like I was a smaller guy, and then I put on that freshman 15, quote unquote, or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure if you look at the chart, it's probably just, it's not a hockey stick. It's probably just a steady increase from the time that I was in middle school, like all the way through, you know? And even when I was in high school, like I quote unquote tried to get in shape because people would be such dicks that I would go to the gym, right? And my mom worked at a gym. Mm-hmm. Like my mom's been an aerobics instructor since she was teaching aerobics when I was a baby, like in the womb.
Right.
She's
so
teaching
you
aerobics.
Have
like
you have that avenue.
Right. And so I would go to the gym and I would just I would do it for a little while. I had people who wanted to help me. Like I can't even tell you how many times Derek Sherm and Ryan Gulledge and all those guys come in, we'll help you. Eric Neal was a coach for the lacrosse team, and like him and his buddy were like power lifters, like squatting 700 pounds in the weight room, like smelling salts before they would hit the squat rack. Like crazy shit, and they would try and get us into it, and like we'd do it for like 4 weeks or something,
and then it fell off,
and then it would just fall off.
Right.
Like,
I mean, that's the hard part is staying engaged in that.
Well, and I couldn't find something that really like made me tick. You know what I mean?
Right. You didn't have that interest level.
No, I didn't at all. But the other thing of it was like I didn't want to make the change. Like I had no. So I wasn't interested in fitness, but like I wasn't ready to make the change either.
Right, and you know just as well as anybody, if you're not ready to make it, you're not going to.
Right.
That's with anything.
Right.
That's across the board.
Like, and the only time I would go, so if I was getting ready for football season or if I was getting ready for lacrosse season or whatever it was, like the only time I would go run is like when someone was like, yo, lacrosse starts in fucking 2 weeks.
Right, it's time to go.
Right.
Right.
But that still didn't, like, it still didn't matter. I remember we used to have to run. We'd have to run suicides for people. So, 10 people got a D and 4 people got an F. And we'd have to run 14 suicides down the field because those were the 14 people who were, like, ineligible for gameplay that week.
Right, and that's also not a good environment to get you motivated to do something either.
Hell no.
No.
Hell no. Dude, I remember I had a lacrosse coach who our punishment, that's
That's the word.
bad right there.
Yeah.
But our punishment for whatever, we missed a ground ball or something like, and this is in practice, he'd put three people per goal, right? Per lacrosse goal, full-size 6x6 goal, 3 people, you'd pick it up. You'd have to run a lap around the field. And this asshole would stand on the side and zing balls at the goal.
Yeah, great motivation.
While we're running around the field.
That worked really well for you.
What the hell was that guy's name? He was a University of Delaware graduate too. I'd love to see him now.
Are we naming names?
Degenerate.
All right, so a little bit of a transition. I mean, you talked, and you've said it a couple times already, that kids are just dicks, right? And there's no question about it. You think of anybody first, second, third, all the way up through elementary school, they're seeing something that's not normal. But you can probably attest to this as we kind of get older, right? People, I would say, maybe bite their tongue a little bit more on things like weight and appearance and fitness, and you can go tenfold on examples of that.
Yeah.
But as you kind of have gotten older and those snarky, ignorant comments kind of went away, what would you say was the motivation or your determination that changed your course of how your weight loss journey has gone?
There was 2 instances, and I'll tell those 2 stories, but I think the other thing is the comments stop, but the looks don't.
That's true.
So just because you're not saying it, when you're looking at somebody,
You're saying it.
Right. You know what I mean? So yes, it does stop, but in a way, like, just FYI, when that bigger person is at the buffet and they have a full plate and you're looking at them, like, they can fucking see it.
Right.
Just
What are
so
you doing?
Know.
What are you doing?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there was 2 stories, and I don't think my parents even know either of these stories. So if they listen to this, it should be interesting. But I'll share them anyway. So the first one was actually a name I already mentioned at Derek Sherm's wedding, and his wedding, oddly enough, was the day before my birthday. He got married on August the 11th. So I was already in party mode, and like, this is when I was in the heat of partying. You know what I mean? So like, I picked that up late in high school, and that transitioned into college. And so we're getting ready for his wedding, and I'm driving up, and I'm thinking, I haven't really had too much to eat today, so I should probably get something to eat, because we're going to go through this service, and then cocktail hour is going to start, and we're going to be ready to get it in. So I stop at Wawa, get my traditional lunch of a soft pretzel and iced tea, head to the hotel, pull on my suit. We go over, we start hitting the wedding, and I'm still kind of hungry when I get there. We go through the service, and they start cocktail hour, and there's like a couple, little cocktails out, and they had like some small finger foods. I maybe picked at some of that stuff. Long story short, I had a salad and like Lord knows how many drinks. Right? So I have like a salad, a soft pretzel, and some finger foods in my stomach, and I just start crushing drinks.
Going at it.
Yeah, going after it. So, and I mean, for those of you who don't know Derek Sherm, like, that was the vibe of his wedding. You know what I mean? So like, I was just fitting in with the rest of the crowd. Like, it's no biggie. But then it definitely got to a point where I was like, man, I should slow down, and I didn't. like I had that thought, like I should slow down, and I just didn't. And I remember coming back, I found like the bridal suite. I probably followed Derek, and there was more Dogfish 60 Minutes hiding in there. So I had one of those, and they're like, hey, the shuttle's leaving. I was like, cool, well, I'm not dumping out my beer, so whatever. So we get in the shuttle. I think it's probably about 2-3 minutes in the shuttle, and I fall asleep. Pass out.
Yeah, well, I mean...
So I pass out, and the guy next to me like yells, and I like wake up real quick, and I feel him tilt the 60-minute back upright. So he was pissed because I spilled this 60-minute on his shoes. So another probably 3 minutes goes by, and I hear him, and he's like, oh, motherfucker, again. And he tilts the bottle. And like, now looking back, I'm thinking to myself, why didn't he just take it after the first time? Like, did he really think that it was going to make a difference? So I guess they probably took it. But yeah, I was I think we got back to the hotel, and I mean, it was a wedding, so it probably ended at like 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and I was like, there was no way they were going to a restaurant bar after that, and I was like, yeah, I'm not. I'm shutting it down. Like, yeah, it was ridiculous, and so I remember the next morning when I woke up, like the amount of embarrassment that I felt from that wedding, because I knew I was like a little out of control. Right. And so I like later on down the road, like I had apologized to Derek and Kristen. I was like, look, I'm sorry. Like I probably and still to this day, they're like, nah, you really weren't. Like you kind of just fit in with everybody else who was there. But still to this day, I'm like, oh, that wasn't too good. And the second one, and this was really it. This was the super duper red flag. Like, you either need to get this shit under control or like this isn't going to end well. I went out in Westchester one night, and I had just gotten in a fight with my girlfriend at the time. And we won't name names on that one.
Nope.
But
not necessary.
I had just gotten in a fight, and it was like one of those where it was just like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to just go for it. And so I went and met my friends in Westchester. We pre-gamed at an apartment there, and we went out and hit the normal Westchester loop, like Landmark, Barnaby's, Kildare's, the whole nine, right? And I remember standing in Kildare's, and I was continuing to order drinks, and now looking back, I was like, I'm thinking to myself, there's absolutely no way that bartender should have continued to serve me. Like, there's no way. There's no way. Like, I should have been cut off way, way before I even left that bar. And we left that bar, we went to another bar. We were kicked out of that bar, not because of me. We were with somebody who got kicked out, so we all had to leave. So we go to a friend's apartment, and I'm there for a little while, and I'm like, you know what? It's time to shut it down. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning or some shit. And I said to my buddy, I'm like, yo, I'm out. I'm going to go back to the apartment and fall asleep. Like, I got to go pick somebody up tomorrow morning at such time. And, like classic, like, bro moment when you're both drunk. He, like, puts both hands on my shoulders, and he's like, yo, are you sure you're good to make it back to the apartment?
And
like,
drunk you says, yeah,
I'm
good.
Like, dude, I go to school here. Like, I know this campus like the back of my hand. Yeah, I know where I'm going. Yep. I'm fine.
Yep.
So I actually I remember that, but I don't remember walking down the steps and leaving the apartment. Then I do remember, I think I was walking down a street, because I remember looking down and seeing my feet like crisscross one another. And I remember seeing a yellow line, right? Then it's blank. I got nothing. Then I come back to, and I remember walking down another road, this time super dark, super, super dark, right? And I'm just walking. Definitely more coherent at this point, but still no business.
You're not there.
No business like walking down a road. So I'm walking. I do have half of the mind to get off the road and like lay down flat, like Army Man style, when I see lights coming, because I don't want to get caught and get like a drunk in public or something stupid.
Right. Or hit by a car.
Well, yeah. But that wasn't on my mind. Right. I didn't want to get caught. That was the problem. I didn't want to get caught because I was on the Westchester campus. Like, when you join the health and education program, like, they read you the riot act about what you can and cannot get in trouble for that will grant you never getting a teaching certificate. So
right. And walking down a dark road, drunk in public, probably.
So I'm like, I remember pulling out my phone and turning on the Apple Maps, like trying to figure out, like, where am I? I come up to this intersection and I look up and I see this sign on the side of this barn that says like sausage, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm at the intersection of Birmingham Road and Route 52. Like, I have no idea how I got here. I am a solid mile, maybe 2 miles from where I started.
Should be.
And
Or should be.
yeah,
Yeah.
and no clue how I got there. And at this point, it was probably like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had no clue how I was going to get back. And mind you, Route 52 is like, you got no business walking on that road either.
Right.
So,
Especially at 3 o'clock in the morning.
right.
Yeah.
So I know where, at this point, I know where I am, and I have enough mind to get back to where I needed to go. And I took the long way, but I took the safe way because I knew that I could get back to South Campus of Westchester University from that intersection where I was. And so that's what I did. I got back to South Campus because I knew that there was a sidewalk there, and I was, like closer to a sidewalk. So I went, and as I'm coming through the campus, there was one spot where I walked up this hill to get off of the road, and the hill was so steep that I was actually, like, I had my fingers in the chain link fence of the soccer field on South Campus because the hill was so steep. So when you're doing a walk back like that, like, you have a lot of time to reflect on what happened.
And saying, what the fuck got me here?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And I even still remember, like, that next day when I woke up, like, I didn't have a hangover because at that point, obviously, like, it was borderline, but yeah, I wasn't getting a hangover. You know what I mean? So, I knew that something had to change. But that was probably, I remember I had a sweater on, like, I had a sweatshirt on, I had a scarf on. So it was relatively cold. It must have been in the spring at that point. And I didn't start anything until that next fall. But it was at that point that I knew that something definitely needed to change because this was, it was going to go down a bad road.
Right. And
quick.
I know the story, and I've heard the stories, and I've heard you even kind of open up in previous podcasts, and I'm sure most of the listeners can kind of put two and two together with this, that drinking were tied to two of your worst stories that made you completely just flip a switch and say, okay, something needs to change.
Yeah.
So, and again, I know your story, and if you could just talk a little bit about, I guess, the drinking aspect of it, and kind of, I guess, your mental state as far as why you went down that road. And then we can even take it a step further with, like, the sleeping pills, and even going into that approach. Like, you were at a point in your life, I feel like, where you needed to take medication in order to fall asleep and have a good night's rest.
Oh, it was I just needed it to fall asleep. Like, there was no question about it.
Right.
Right. So the drinking started, and, like, listen, I've said this when I speak at Westchester. I didn't start drinking until I was a senior in high school. Okay. And when I was a senior in high school, we had 4 or 5 houses that we would go to. And it was, here's the bowl when you walk in the front door, put your keys in the bowl, go down the basement, do whatever it is that y'all are going to do down the basement. Just so you know, you're not, this bowl is not going to be here until tomorrow morning.
Right.
Just FYI.
Right.
Right. And so, was it against the law what we were doing? 100% it
Absolutely.
was. We were 18 years old. We were not supposed to be drinking. But guess what? Would I trade any one of those weekends for the world? Absolutely not. We had I have some of the best memories in somebody's basement as a senior in high school with the group of friends that I had.
Just that camaraderie.
Dude, I literally would not trade some of those weekends for the world. Wouldn't do it. We had so much fun. So, and, like, the keys were gone. Guess what? Did we do anything? No. The worst thing that would happen is we'd put on freaking boxing gloves and go out in the backyard, or somebody would ride a sled or snowboard down the steps.
It was safe, illegal fun.
Yeah, like, it was not, you know what I mean? So, it is what it is. So that's when it started. But when I got to college, like, that group of friends that I had, they all left.
other colleges.
They all went to other colleges.
Right.
They all knew what they wanted to do, what they wanted to major in, where they wanted to go. They took the SATs. They did all that shit in high school, and I did not. So they all went off to their schools, which wasn't a big deal because guess what? Somewhere in Kutztown, like somewhere at Old Dominion, West Virginia, like they were within striking distance. So I did still get to go visit them, but I wasn't hanging out with them every single weekend.
That close group of friends who you had that accountability with, who didn't make fun of anything,
Right.
They didn't
Nothing.
care. It was
Nothing.
It was Ian, and it was just Ian.
Right. And I was going. I mean, I was commuting to school, so you may as well chalk that up because you meet a couple people who you have classes with,
Right.
but like that's it. Like you talk to them when you're in class, but you're not making plans to hang out over the weekend.
Right.
You're not living in a dorm with 400 other strangers. You don't have roommates. Like I was just hanging out, you know? So,
but you also probably found yourself traveling to those other colleges where your friends are at.
Yeah, 100%.
And getting into that same basement feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
the way that it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did. Like I said, it wasn't nearly as much as it was, when I was in high school.
Right.
So, pair that with, I can't remember now if it was my freshman year or if it was my sophomore year, second year. I lost a friend to suicide, and that was insane. That was insane. I mean, I talked to him probably maybe a week before, if that. And I mean, like same thing in high school. Like we used to go, he jacked up his leg in high school. So he would of course get somebody to like take his backpack to the elevator for him so he could
and
go
that
up
was
and down
you.
the step. Right. And like that was me. And so we had a tight bond. We used to just do some crazy stuff. Like nothing like bad. Like we would have so he got out early. They would dismiss him early on days where we were having dismissal because they didn't want him in the hallways after last period to go outside to his car because he was on crutches, right? So on Fridays, he would bring a cooler with like some iced teas and some sodas, and he would sit out at his sister's car and wait for her to get out because he would get out early. And we called it Cooler Fridays. And so it became like this huge thing. So, we were tight, man. And we would go to hockey games and stuff every Friday. And so when I got that phone call, like I didn't believe it at first. Right. And so I was a freshman when his sister was a senior. So I did know a couple of the seniors, especially through lacrosse. And so I sent a couple messages and I was like, hey, have you, because mind you, they're 4 years ahead of us. So they're like pretty far removed.
Right.
So I said, do you still talk to his sister? Like, what's going on? Do you know if this is accurate? And a lot of them didn't really talk to her. Like they hadn't kept in contact. So somebody was like, well, why don't you just send a message, like a generic message, and just say like, hey, I forget what it was, but I sent it and I got a message back that basically confirmed.
Right.
And it's just one of those things where, when you're 18, 19 years old and because I was a pallbearer, like I carried him to his final resting place. Like when you do that at 18 or 19 years old, like that makes you grow up real fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like real fast. So yeah, that was a challenging and weird time. And I found myself like I guess hiding the emotions from that because I didn't know really what to do with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then that kind of led to some of the hiding of the drinking because I knew that it, just like the food, like it was one of those things where I just didn't want people to judge it. So I kind of like didn't really say anything.
Let them see it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I remember saying something to somebody and they're like, well, that's kind of weird that you're just drinking by yourself. And I was like, well, not really. Like, think about it. If I was at Westchester, if I was at Kutztown visiting a friend or whatever, like it's a Friday night, like I'd be doing the same thing anyway. I'd still be drinking. So what difference does it make? And they're like, oh yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. Like,
right. But you found ways. I don't know if manipulate's the right word, but I'll use it just to kind of make it seem all right in your head. But looking back 100%. On it, you can say, oh, you know what? That's That's not like socially normal
No.
to crack
Nothing.
open a bottle or a bottle of beer or a bottle of liquor on a Friday
It was
night.
wine.
Wine.
It was wine.
By yourself.
Wine was like my big one. Yeah. 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 Red wine was the big one. And so then like the way that the sleeping pills came in was I was dating this chick at the time, and she was taking sleeping pills. Like, she was prescribed sleeping medication. And so like when she would take it, it was almost as if she was drunk, but she wasn't. It was just the sleeping medication kind of like kicking in before she would fall asleep.
Right, the loopy.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, like, I looked at it as like, oh, that looks like fun. And I was like, I have to get those. Like, I have problems sleeping. I need to get those because it's going to help me sleep. Right. And you would be absolutely amazed at how easy it is to walk into a doctor's office and this is a doctor you have never seen before. So I switched from a pediatrician to a primary care provider. The first time I went in there, I went in armed with all of the things that I tried to help my sleep disorder.
Right.
Right.
You already knew.
Oh, I was
knew the
I was
steps.
online, and I
Right.
knew exactly what you were supposed to try. No coffee after 12 o'clock.
Right.
Blah 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 blah. Like,
You
all
knew what to
these things.
say in order
Melatonin.
for them to
Dude, I had
prescribe.
all the trigger words. I had everything
Right.
down pat.
Right.
Down pat. And I walked out of there with a script in hand.
Feeling great.
And then I was like, that's it. That's all I.
Right. I'm
Right.
good.
So he gave me whatever it was. Like, let's say it was 5 milligrams and 10 milligrams. He gave me the 5s. Right. And I was like, well, this isn't going to work. Like, I need the 10s. So I went home. I took the 5s for a little while. And then, of course, the 5s stopped working.
Right.
Right. They stopped working magically.
Right.
Like, it just didn't work
Right.
anymore. And so I took 2 5s one night, and I was like, oh, that was golden. That was perfect. Right. So they do a follow-up with you, obviously. And they're like, hey, so how's the medication working out? And I said, well, it was working pretty good, but actually the 5 wasn't enough. So I took 2 of the 5s,
And that worked
10,
better.
and it worked better.
Right.
And he was like, oh, well, we don't suggest that you do that. Like, you should definitely always call us first, but okay, here's a script for the 10.
Here's the 10s, 30 of them. You're good. Come back next month.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And so that was just it. And so that's what it was. It was a mixture of those two things. But the point when it got really, really bad was the next relationship that I was in. And it was keeping up with that lie and that secret, really, more or less. It was more of a secret than a lie, but it was a little bit of both.
Right.
And so it was the stress of trying to keep up with that made it worse. That made it like I really needed something just to sleep. And
Trying to keep up internally, like with the lie.
Oh, internally and externally. I mean, because like I said, I'm not going to name names. Like, the past is the past, right? But when you're in a relationship like that, like, it was clearly a relationship that I should not have been in. 100% should not have been in, right? And I can say that in full confidence right now, looking back, because hindsight is 20/20. But hear me out on this one. First of all, I'm not justifying the actions that I took, okay? I know now, looking back, that it was wrong. Should not have done it, okay? But with that being said, as a listener, I would like you to put yourself in my shoes. I was, 18, probably 19 years old at the time, right? For most, if not all of my high school, and then at that point, some college, I was the one who was made fun of, obviously. Couldn't really get the attention of girls. And in high school and college, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? So when this came about, I had a beautiful woman who was giving me her attention.
Right. And you're on top of a mountain because you're not used to that.
And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What's going on? I know that this is a bad idea, But at the same time, like, I'm getting attention that I've never gotten before from anyone, let alone like someone of this caliber, right? So, like I said, I know that it was a bad idea, but it was something that I couldn't turn away from.
Right, but it's something that felt good,
Oh,
right?
100%.
And there's a pattern there, like
100%.
like the drinking felt good,
yeah.
the sleeping pills felt good, the relationship felt good. Like
Right.
you ran to different things that were making you feel good because inside you weren't feeling good. You never had exposure to that. So I think when you look back and you can say hindsight's 2020 and that's all great and you shouldn't have done it. But I don't think it's a good idea for you to just completely take that and just forget it, because like I see you and I look at where you are now. And if you weren't there and you didn't go through all that shit that you went through, there is no way in the world that you would have the job that you have the family and parents that you have the relationship that you have the job that you have. You know what I mean? Like that's all a part of your story that has led you somewhere where now you want to look back on that.
Right.
And you want to take everything that you've been doing and continue to grow that mindset.
Yeah. Well, the other thing of it is, like, listen, if you can keep up the lie of dating someone who's married and has 3 kids for 2+ years, like, and dealing with all of the ramifications from that, because, like, all right, we'll fast forward through the whole relationship, right? And the thing of it is, when it got down to the end, it got to the point where I had a lot of people that were giving me their opinions on the relationship itself. Like, you shouldn't do this. This is bad, blah, 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 blah. Right? It was like, and so I was getting pulled from both sides, because, like, I had this, like, us against the world and we were going to make it on this side. And then I had this, like, this is never going to fucking work. Like, why can't you get it through your thick skull? Right? So it was just like this back and forth. And so, eventually I came to terms with the fact that it clearly was not going to work, right? And so that was the relationship I was in when I had the night on, I was out on 52.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like right around this time that I had started working at the Hockessin Athletic Club. And so when I went to the gym at the Y where I was working, I wasn't able to, like, get in the swing. I wasn't able to get anything going because, one, everybody knew who I was, right? So they would always come up and listen. I love talking to people.
We're doing a podcast
like,
to talk
I
to people.
love talking to people, but, like, when I'm trying to work out, like, that's not the time to come up and say, like, hey, how's it going? Blah 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 blah. Right? For one, and for two, as funny as this sounds, like, I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but for me, like, as a big person, I don't want you to come up to me and say, hey, I see that you're working out and trying to, like, don't bring attention to it. That's the last thing that I want, is you bringing attention.
You've gotten attention from it
right
your whole childhood life. Like, 100%. Now you're trying to do something and somebody's like, oh, yes, go, Ian. Good for you. That's not what you want.
No,
right.
I didn't want that at all.
That.
I didn't want that at all. I wanted absolutely zero attention.
And you couldn't do that at the YMCA where you worked for, what, 9 years?
Dude, yeah. I was like going on like 10 years there or something insane. So it wasn't going to happen. But when I started at Hack, no one knew who I was.
Right.
Like, nobody had any idea who I was. Like, I worked down in the swim. And so even when I would go in the gym, like, nobody knew who I was. I had like, at this time I was like maybe teaching a little bit so people recognized my face from there. But, like, usually I was just a lifeguard.
You're another Joe Schmo that was going into the fitness center to work out.
Right. 100%. And so I remember, like, I still remember this, and I've told this story 100 different times. Like, it was a Sunday night, and I sent you a text message, and I said, tomorrow is the first day that I'm going to go work out, and I just need you to tell me what to do. Like, just give me like a soft plan of what to do. And you gave me, I don't know, probably like 7 to 10 different exercises. And it was all the machines. And I think you said do 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes of cardio before that, and get warmed up, and then hit these exercises. And you can do this 3 days a week. And now I don't know if you remember saying this, but I still remember this. The only thing that was a strict rule that you gave me was that I was not allowed to run.
Yeah. I remember it vividly. I'm sitting here smiling as you're telling the story.
Well, and I see when I think back to that, like, that was tough. That was tough to hear, like, no running. Because when you think about weight loss, like, that's the first thing.
Right, cardio.
And people are like, oh, well, I'm going to start to get in shape. I'm going to start to lose weight. What's the first thing they do is they go for a run. Like, that's always the first thing that people do. So I remember hearing that, and I was like,
fuck, yeah, that sucks.
Wow.
Yeah, because you were...
I can't even do that.
You were what? You were pushing...
So you know what's funny? And this is... I don't remember whose podcast I said this on. I was on somebody's podcast, and they were like, oh, so what did what was your starting weight? And I have to guesstimate it, because the other strict rule that you told me was I had to weigh in every single day. And at the very beginning, I said, fuck you, I'm not weighing in every single day. I was like, that's ridiculous.
Yep.
So I think I weighed in. I actually had been working out for a little while because I didn't have a scale. See, the other thing of it was I didn't have a scale at home. So I didn't want to be the big guy getting on the scale in the locker room.
Right.
To call attention to it. And so I had probably been working out for at least 2 weeks, maybe 3, before I stepped on the scale for the first time, and it read 297. So you figure if I was working out for 3 weeks, even if I was doing minimal working out,
320.
Yeah,
yep.
I was well over 300.
Right.
I was well over 300. I had to be. I mean, you could lose upwards of 5 pounds in a week when you first get started. Like,
you could lose 5 pounds in a day.
Yeah, like when you first get started, you could drop some weight real fast. So I have to guesstimate that, but yeah, I was easily over 300. All right, my friends, that is the first half of my story, the story of Do It For Yourself. As I said, the second half of the show will be released on Thursday. This was a little bit of a longer episode, so I wanted to split it up into 2 chunks because I know I try and keep my episodes to about an hour-ish, maybe, and some change, but this was well over that with an intro, outro, all that good stuff. So Thursday, keep an eye out. The second half of my story will be going live, and I really look forward to sharing this with you, and I can't wait to hang out then.